Kia ora koutou. Hello everyone, I'm Paolo Bertolin, the Artistic Director of Ano Marama, New Zealand International Film Festival 2024. And today I'm here with one of the directors of our Fresh Competition. Fresh Competition is a space in the festival devoted to first narrative feature films that we have identified as examples of the talents of tomorrow. The director we have here today, and we are very grateful that he decided to be with us to share his insight on his own film, is Tommaso Santambrogio, the director of Oceans Are the Real Continents. Welcome, Tommaso, and thank you.
Thanks, Paolo. Hello, everybody.
I'm very glad to start this series with you and talk about your film. And I would like to start this short interview with a question that I will be asking to all the directors we will meet. And I would like to ask you to tell us a little bit about your film in your own words. Can you introduce your film in terms of the story and your choices as a director in your own words? Thank you.
Well, Ocean Are the Real Continents is a movie that deals with separation. It does that thanks to three different stories. There are kind of like a human mosaic of try to be like the human mosaic of the contemporaneity of Cuba. The three stories are three different perspectives on separation, on the themes. The first one is a story of like two young kids that dreams about like living together, Cuba, and going like to play in the US as baseball player. One more extrovert, one more introvert, and suddenly like the family of the one more introvert decide to leave in the next year, in the next future, and the child doesn't know how to deal with that. Then there is a young couple that suddenly like have to face with the opportunity of like the girl to leave the country and travel around Europe with her show. So it's like a present perspective on separation. And then like a third story is about like an old lady that has to deal with the disappearance of the ex-husband that was playing in the army in during the Angola War. So it's like a story that throughout like three different perspectives try to give like an insight of what is Cuba today and where is going like the country, and throughout also like a portrait of the marginality of Cuba. So dealing with like a small town in the inland, San Antonio de los Baños.
Thank you, Tommaso. Well, you are Italian, if I'm not wrong. You're originally from Milan, and you made your first feature film entirely in Cuba. How did you come with this idea of making the film in Cuba? How did you get acquainted with this country? And how did you meet your protagonists? Because I know that your characters are actually real people.
Yeah. Actually, that was like probably the things that helped me a lot in deciding of keep trying doing this movie, because being like an Italian shooting a movie like abroad on the other side of the ocean was not so easy. On the other side, I was really like close to Cuba since I was a child. The first time that I went there was when I was 8 years old, and then I kept like going back every 2-3 years until I went to the School of Cinema for a short period of time in Cuba. And while I was there studying, I found like Edith firstly, and then Edith introduced me to Alexander, one of the other protagonists, that introduced me to Milagros, and suddenly I had all the protagonists of the movie, and I had already like an idea of filming and dealing with separation. And thanks to the real stories, the artistic process was really interesting, because we had like really the chance of exchanging, of talking about the real experience, and kind of built a dramatic art reenacting their own experience about separation, what they were living and facing in their real life. So it was like a contamination between reality and fiction, past and present, that was really like interesting to me, and helped me a lot also like in building this movie.
Thank you. You mentioned already something about the process, how you worked with your real life people becoming your actors for the film. But the film, apart from this mixture of documentary and fiction, is also quite remarkable because of its stylistic choices. I mean, the film is shot in a staggeringly beautiful black and white. It has this choice of still compositions. It's really a marvelous film to watch, and I wanted to know a little bit more about your choices as a director, this kind of very specific visual approach.
Well, yes, I mean, like aesthetically, probably like the first choice that I've done is to choose to shoot in black and white the movie, because when I was there and staying a lot of time there, also on a touristic perspective at the beginning, I realized how important it could be to change like the point of view of the viewers, of the audience, thanks to an aesthetic choice. So thanks to the use of black and white, the attitude towards the aesthetic attitudes towards the country, and even like the emotional attitudes change, because suddenly you're not looking at Cuba as like a postcard, as like a colorful and joyful place with mojitos and music and all cars, but you're more focused on the real stories of the characters, really like the new perspective on the well, new meaning true perspective on the characters, on the real stories, on the places. And I think it really like helped firstly also myself being like still like an Italian, and but mostly like all the process. So it was really like interesting. And actually after that, I had like of course, like my point of view is strictly connected to the use of like grand angular lenses and generally fixed shot, or well, more stable shot. But in this movie was really like something that we thought a lot about, because we realized that in order to give really like the pace, the daily routine, and transmit like the vibes of the place where we were shooting, probably like using fixed shot and tripod mainly was really important. Generally, I like the idea of not doing unnecessary camera movements, that all the movements have to have like an meaning somehow. But in this case, like was even more strict, because the idea, the feeling that I had is that kind of most of the movements, the camera movement, were not necessary actually. Yeah, so that was something that really impact also the attitude towards the movie. Then another things that is not like a stylistic or aesthetic elements, but was really like meaningful in the process, was also the choice, for example, of the title. That was something that Ocean Are the Real Continents actually is a verse of a poem. Is kind of like a statement for me, because what I wanted to do in this movie was kind of having like a poetic approach, evoking the stories and the feeling more than explaining in a didascalic way. And so using like a verse of a poem that in this case is from like a poet of the inland of Cuba, of the same region of San Antonio de los Baños, was quite important as a aesthetic and linguistic approach. So language and the linguistic approach in this movie is quite important, still keeping the human and emotional part at the center of the village.
Tommaso, thank you so much for the insight into your film. We hope that this will help our audiences here in New Zealand to appreciate and understand better your work.